Rumors are swirling that we're about to get another Fantastic Four trailer. Rumors are swirling that Fantastic Four is going to be something very different than what it is that we were possibly expecting. Rumors are swirling that Fantastic Four is going to be a film that breaks the paradigm of what the Fantastic Four is. I can't say I would necessarily be against that idea, but I don't think it is going to go in Marvel's favor, and I'm going to outline 3 reasons why in this video. So I think from my perspective, I've always hated the Fantastic Four. I never thought they were very entertaining. I always thought that the Hulk was a better thing than Thing. I always thought I'm X-Men guy. I always thought Sunfire was a better Pyro character than the Human Torch. Reed Richards and Sue Storm were always kind of boring to me, and I didn't understand. So in Reed Richards looks so much older than Sue Storm that I always thought they were father and daughter until I realized no, they're not. It's just a weird concept, the Fantastic Four, not from a really sort of traditional family myself. So the family idea never really spoke to me in that way. So I always thought that Fantastic Four was kind of uh, boring, and I think that's part of why the translation to the big screen hasn't to this point worked. Fox tried it in 3 films across 2 separate iterations, and they couldn't get it to work. They always had something wrong, unless they had absolutely everything wrong. That said, I went out and saw Guardians of the Galaxy before we knew Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be what Guardians of the Galaxy came to be on the big screen. There were marked differences between Guardians of the Galaxy in the comic books and those that found their way to the silver screen. And I was willing at that point to go ahead and say, hands in the air, we're going to see what this film is about. And I think that it turned into one of the best trilogies of the entire MCU, and in becoming one of the better trilogies of the entire MCU, ends up being one of the better trilogies of superhero films in general. And James Gunn did some things with those characters. James Gunn did some things with the mythos of the Guardians of the Galaxy themselves that were outside of what was in the comics. James Gunn did some things visually different than the comics, and everyone was on board. I'm going to outline why I think this is going to be a big miss for the Fantastic Four. And James Gunn is a small part of why. But if we want to point to the bigger idea, I think that the direction in which we have to point is Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan took the Batman franchise and rebranded it, spun it around, made it realistic, made it dark and gritty, but not like Frank Miller dark and gritty, made it dark and gritty in a way that you could kind of think, yeah, this is something that could happen. Somebody could dress in this way and go out and fight crime in this manner. It is ridiculous, it is silly, but not beyond the pale. There are people who do way weirder things than this in today's world. Christopher Nolan took the Batman mythos and shrunk it down in a way, made it realistic, and by making it realistic and shrinking it down, actually made the mythos bigger. And the movies that he produced were distinctly Christopher Nolan. You can get in Batman Begins and think, yeah, no, this feels like a Christopher Nolan film. We're not dealing with time cuts. We're not dealing with, is there a spin at the end, something like that. But you feel the weight of the characters in those movies. The Dark Knight Rises, in my opinion, was a disappointment, but you still had characters in the movie that were real, that were 3-dimensional. Now, maybe Christopher Nolan worked with some time jumping in that movie, and I think we all know the infamous Batman Returns at the foot of a bridge from halfway across the world. You know the problems with The Dark Knight Rises. I'm not going to rehash those here, but even though that was a flawed movie, it was visually stunning. It had interesting characters. It had a genuinely um, sadistic plot that could have been a real world phenomenon, right? Those were the ways in which the whole Batman trilogy from Christopher Nolan, even the bad one, was a Christopher Nolan film. You felt that in the movie. It didn't feel like just Batman. It felt like Christopher Nolan presents Batman, right? That is a very good way to do things. When you can get those translations into film, it helps. And I think I've got 3 things outlined that go to further this point, and in my opinion, kind of explain why it doesn't go that way if you're not doing it correctly. We had an article from That Park Place just a couple days ago, and yesterday WDW Pro had a video on his channel talking about this very article, and it struck a chord in my mind. The article itself is titled Fantastic Four First Steps Won't Be an Origin Story. Director and actors make concerning remarks about a vital MCU film, from That Park Place by Raven Redgrave. And it is worth noting here, worth jumping in right off the bat. This should be an origin story. After phase 1 of the MCU, they tried to get away from it a little bit because they thought that origin stories were giving audiences comic book fatigue. They thought that it was actually being origin story fatigue. I don't care. It doesn't matter if it's a good film, people will see it even if it is an origin story, a genre, a subgenre of a subgenre. Origin stories are not the big bad. The big bad is terrible filmmaking. And Marvel right now is suffering from terrible filmmaking on every level. These projects look bad. These projects are poorly written. These projects are poorly acted. The concepts behind these projects are miserable. So don't shy away from the origin story. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face. The article begins like this. Fantastic Four First Steps, terrible title, by the way. First Steps, who cares? Is on its way. And the actors and directors have already given hints about what to expect. However, what they've said may be cause for concern. In an exclusive interview with Entertainment Weekly, director Matt Shakman revealed the Fantastic Four First Steps won't be an origin story. One of the ways we're making it our own thing, he said, is we're not telling the story of them going up and being changed and starting our story there. There's a lot of well-known narrative that leads up to that moment, right? And then you're making up your new story starting basically at the end of the first act. And we thought, well, let's just start this thing off from a completely new foot. So we are beginning after that. Why are we beginning after that? Because A, we're making it our own. B, there's a lot of well-known narrative that leads up to that moment, right? The fact that you have to say right is point in case there that no, it is not. The Fantastic Four are not, so the first family of Marvel had their golden era, sure. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. There's not a lot of narrative in the public discourse about the Fantastic Four's origin. You need that, which means we're making it our own thing. Was your real point? Well, here's number one. It's not about you. It is not about you when you are making a film. It's about the story. It's about the characters. It's about what works. What works here is you have these four characters that you. Why? Okay. The Fantastic Four are four characters who are imbued with superpowers after going through a cosmic sort of storm. Why would you want to introduce them after that? From a storytelling narrative perspective, the biggest card that you have to play is that. Why? Because that toggle there, before and after, that gives you character change. Do you know how hard it is to devise a plot to change characters twice in one movie? It's very difficult. It usually requires a whole lot of script, a very long script, a whole long run time. Those are difficult things to ask. When you have an outside event like this imbuing situation with the Fantastic Four, you get to show who is Ben Grimm. You get to show who is Sue Storm. You get to give us those characters, put them through a thing that changes them. Now Ben Grimm has to come to terms with the fact that he looks like the Thing. Now the stunning and beautiful Sue Storm has to deal with the fact that at times you can't see her. One of the great things about a superhero origin story is it gives the script, the writer, the director, the audience two pivot points. Because what happens is you have the character as they were. Ben Grimm is just this kind of gruff fella. He gets these powers that come with the fact that now he looks like a monster. He looks like a thing. Okay, great. That's a character change that we get to see Ben Grimm deal with which we get to see Ben Grimm deal. Then, in order to solve the final problem of the film, in order to take down the Silver Surfer, to take down Galactus, to take down Doctor Doom, to take down any of this rogues gallery, Ben Grimm has to come to terms with the positive parts of his powers. Look, you can have turns in stories several times in many scripts. Many movies have that dynamic to them. But a genuine pivot point for the character happening twice in a 90-minute film is difficult to fit in. With something like the Fantastic Four, you have the wonderful opportunity to develop characters. 20, 30 pages of script is all you need if you're a talented writer. Then you give them the powers, and you show how those powers weigh on the characters that were developed. And then those characters have to use, so you have Ben Grimm, you have the Thing, and then you have the Thing having to harness what it was that made Ben Grimm in order to solve the story at the end. But these people didn't want to do that. These people making this mini money movie did not want to do that. And so they skipped it. Why? Because that's the hard work. Here's what I bet you. I know nothing about this movie. I'm willing to bet you that it's very self-indulgent. Those movies that have the two pivot points, very little room for indulgence in those films. You have to develop the characters instead. I am willing to bet you the script that is going to be shot is extremely self-indulgent and is going to suffer because of that. But let's move on to the second thing here. And remember, I'm zooming out and telling you why these types of movies, don't work. And for that, we're going to go to an interview with Rian Johnson of Star Wars fame, of Knives Out fame. He was asked a question long ago whenever you were writing, let's say you were creating your own universe. You said you don't think about actors. You are starting something from scratch. How is that approach versus something where you have a pre-existing universe? If you were writing characters for Star Wars, you have this universe, you have characters that everybody knows, and then now you are doing something from scratch. Do you find your approach is different for that? Rian Johnson answered, no, not at all. Because I don't really think in terms of universe or in terms of creating worlds or whatever. That's not interesting to me. This sounds very much like the quote that we just read, does it not? I don't care about their origin. I just want the toys to play with. The only thing that is interesting to me is story. Story's not character. That's kind of weird, isn't it? You're a writer and the thing that concerns you is story, not character? Okay. And the story specific to, like, whether you were writing a Star Wars film that's part of a 3-movie trilogy or a quote unquote original thing like Knives Out, you are still telling a story that is new to the thing that you are trying to do. It has to work within the context of that movie. Certain elements do not, Ryan. So, to me, the notion of what's the entire galaxy or world that you were creating or something, I can't imagine getting excited about creating that. To me, what I'm excited about is creating a 2-hour long experience for an audience to have in the theater. And that means how they engage moments to moment with the story and the characters that are on screen. And that doesn't change in either one of those. Here's why he's wrong. Here's why this applies to what it seems that they are doing with the Fantastic Four, and quite frankly, what I would be willing to bet they're doing with the Fantastic Four. The universe is what is giving you the opportunity. The universe might not be the painting, but it is the paints. Without the paints, you don't have the painting. The painting is your movie, right? You are painting that painting with the paints of the universe. How does Reed Richards bounce off of Sue Storm in your movie? Might not be because of how Black Widow and Iron Man interact, but it can say something about both of those interactions. You have a larger palette of colors with which to make your painting. That is the universe in which you play. You don't owe your movie to the universe, but your movie owes its tone to the universe. So, the final point here, I think it's understandable why I channeled that interview, that famous interview, infamous interview with Rian Johnson, in order to talk about Fantastic Four. I have to do it again. Rian Johnson is notorious for this phrase, I want to subvert expectations. Notorious for the fact that his movie did not fit within the trilogy at all, did not take anything that was set up for him, killed off the main bad guy for the trilogy, made the heart and soul of Star Wars, and I'm not a Star Wars guy, but I understood this, made the heart and soul of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, kind of an aimless and pitiful character because he wanted to subvert expectations. Here's the thing with it. So we see a little bit of this working in Fantastic Four. The Silver Surfer, why is the Silver Surfer a woman in this film? Now, look, I don't care necessarily. Norrin Rad was the Silver Surfer in the comics and actually has an incredible story. So you could maybe tell that story with a female incarnation of the Silver Surfer. If it were me, if I were Kevin Feige, I would have started the Fantastic Four trilogy with a 4th movie, a prequel that was the Silver Surfer story. I would have started there, then started with the Fantastic Four. Whatever. I'm not in charge of anything. Here's what I have to say about this, though. It's an attempt to subvert expectation. We have all sorts of things going on in the explanation of this film that are sort of leading us down this thought process that they're trying to subvert expectation. We expected an origin story. We're not getting one. We expected, it seems, this movie takes place outside of the MCU, that this is some alternate dimension. We expected that. We're not getting it, it seems. The main baddie for the Fantastic Four is Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom, by the way, has, of all comic book characters, Doctor Doom's backstory might be the coolest. Might be the most fantasy novel level backstory. Okay? Awesome backstory. You're giving us the fact that this is Robert Downey Jr. instead? Okay. It's just subverting expectation. Here's the problem with subverting expectation for the sake of subverting expectation. The only expectations that you, as the creator, have permission from the fan base to subvert are the credit to rightly subvert. The only expectations that you have permission from the fan base to subvert, the only expectations that you have the credit to rightly subvert, are the expectations that you set up yourself. So, how does this manifest in Rian Johnson's incarnation of Star Wars? Not only is he subverting the universe, he's subverting the film that came prior to him. Why? Because he didn't make it. This is what makes it feel so terrible. This is why it seems so stupid. He did not set up the expectations for that movie. He did not set up Snoke. So we undercut the expectation and cut Snoke in half. Who cares? The audience didn't see it coming. No one saw it coming because it didn't make any sense. The expectation was there for Snoke to be the big bad through 3 movies. That's the way Star Wars works. Didn't matter. Not to Rian Johnson. The expectations here for Fantastic Four are certain things. Someone willing to say we're not making an origin story because we wanted to do our own thing tells me they are trying to subvert expectation and they're trying to get out of the difficult work here. I guarantee you this movie will be self-indulgent. I guarantee you this movie will be half-hearted. I guarantee you that this movie will make the wrong jokes instead of the right jokes. One thing that James Gunn did very well with Guardians of the Galaxy, all of the jokes in Guardians of the Galaxy, if you go back and you watch those movies, are specific to the character. You're not going to see Gamora making a Rocket Raccoon joke. You're not going to see Star-Lord making a Drax joke. I guarantee you that the humor in this movie will be so bland and so vanilla that if you were to see the script without the characters' names attached, you would have no idea who was doing the talking. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other YouTube viewers. This is the sort of thing that I do on the channel, so if you like this sort of thing, be sure to hit that subscribe button and stick around for more in the future. I have several other series going on the channel right now. The Daily Law by Robert Greene, The Daily Stoic, different series like that. So hopefully you will be back for the next one.